William gets a gift. Young William Bradford ran toward the red brick house where he lived with his grandfather. He was only 6 years old, so his legs were short and he couldn't run very fast. "Grandfather!" he called. His toe caught against a rock. William stumbled and fell flat on his face on the stony ground. It scraped his hands and his knees. But the little boy didn't cry. He got up and began to run again. "Grandfather!" His grandfather came to the kitchen door. "Well, Willie, why do you hurry so?" "Down in the pasture. There's a baby lamb. And you said—" William had to stop for a minute because he was so out of breath. "You said I could have the first one that came from my very own." "That you can, boy," Grandfather said. "Come, let's have a look at it." With his hand on the boy's shoulder, the old man went toward the pasture. Grandfather's name also was William Bradford. He had the finest farm in Austerfield. His house was the biggest in the village. It even had 2 chimneys. There were some houses in Austerfield that had no chimneys at all. Fires were laid on the dirt floors. The smoke drifted out through window holes that had no glass in them. In this year of 1596, there were still many houses in England without chimneys or glass windows. Austerfield was only a little village 150 miles north of London. It was near the Great North Road, which went all the way from London to Scotland. But it was the only place young William knew, so he thought it was the most important place in the world, except, perhaps, London and Sherwood Forest. London was important because Queen Elizabeth lived there, and Sherwood Forest was important because of Robin Hood. The forest was only 15 miles from Austerfield. Someday William was going to go there and see where Robin Hood had lived. But now he had his lamb to think of. William pulled the head of Grandfather as far as his arm would stretch. In another moment he was tugging at his grandfather's bony old hand. He was in a big hurry to get back. "Not so fast, not so fast," Grandfather laughed. "I'm no 6-year-old like you. My legs are stiff. My bones are brittle. You'll have to be patient with me. The lamb will wait." So William walked more slowly, but his heart was beating fast. In his mind he was running to that first lamb of the new year. At last they reached the pasture. William ran ahead to open the gate. Then he shut it carefully and ran on ahead of his grandfather. The sheep were at the other end of the pasture, near the river. They seemed very far away. William began pulling at Grandfather's hand again. Then he remembered and told his feet they must go slowly, slowly. At last they came to where the sheep were. They were all standing close together, eating the fresh green grass near the river. There was no new lamb in sight. "Where's your lamb?" said Grandfather. William ran toward the sheep. They jumped and started to run away. "Slowly, boy. Make haste slowly," Grandfather called. "You're scaring them." Slowly? Why did everything have to be so slow? But William stood still until the sheep began to eat the grass again. Then he walked very slowly until he was right in the middle of them. This time they didn't run away. While he looked for the lamb that was to be his own, he could feel their woolly backs as he walked among them. But the sheep were so close together he couldn't see the lamb. Suppose the sheep had stepped on it? Suppose it couldn't breathe under all those woolly bodies? He began to push again, and the sheep began to run away again. Then he remembered what his grandfather was always telling him: "Make haste slowly." He walked on tiptoe through the whole flock of sheep now, until there was nothing but the little river idle in front of him. Suppose the lamb, his lamb, had fallen into the river? William began to run again. He had to run. Then, on the other side of a tree, he saw them, his lamb and the mother sheep. The lamb was standing by its mother, reaching up for its first meal. William just stood there in the sunshine with shining eyes. "There's my lamb," he said to himself very quietly. It was the first time he had said it. It was the first time he had owned a real live animal. So he said it again. "There's my lamb." William turned to look back at his grandfather. He opened his mouth to shout. Then he looked at the lamb again and knew he must not scare it. So he pointed to the lamb with his finger. Then he walked very, very slowly across the soft green grass until he was standing beside the lamb and its mother. The lamb looked very small. Why, it didn't even come up to his knee. Most of the time William had to look away, up at grown people. Now he had to look away, down toward his knees, to see this new lamb of his. It gave him a very special feeling deep down inside that he had never had before. He knelt down beside the baby animal and touched its soft, fine wool. William trembled with excitement. He let his hand move gently down the lamb's back. The lamb didn't seem to mind at all. "What are you going to call her?" His grandfather stood close beside him. He had forgotten all about Grandfather. "Call her? During all the weeks and months William had waited for this lamb to come, he had thought about it as him. Yet if grandfather said her, it must be her. Now that he had his lamb, it didn't matter. I'm going to call her William Bradford's lamb, he said as he stroked the soft wool. But maybe for short I'll call her Bess. That night William asked his grandfather if he could bring Bess into the house. She seemed too small and weak to stay out in the sheep pen. But grandfather only laughed and said, "What do you suppose she has wool for? Lambs don't like living in a house any better than you'd like living in a sheep pen. Your lamb will be all right, Willie. Get up here on my lap and I'll tell you a story. Then to bed with you." William loved his grandfather Bradford. William's father had died when the boy was only a year old. William didn't remember him at all. Then his mother had married again and gone to live with her new husband. She had taken William's sister Alice with her. That left William and grandfather alone in the big house. Mrs. Witherby came in to cook for them, but she hardly ever said a word to anyone. William ran across the room to the settle with the high back. His grandfather always sat here in front of the big fireplace when supper was over. This was the main room of the house. The Bradfords always called it the hall. William climbed up onto the settle. He put his feet up on the scarred old seat. Then he snuggled against the old man and waited. "A long time ago," grandfather said, "long before you were born, Willie there was a man named Peter Bradford. He was your great-great-grandfather." "How long ago was this, grandfather?" William wanted to know. "How long ago? Well, now, I can't say exactly. Maybe 70 years? Was that when Robin Hood was living over in Sherwood Forest? Sometimes grandfather told him stories about Robin Hood. "What questions you ask, lad. How should I know that now? But you know everything, don't you? Let's get back to your great-great-grandfather, Peter. I know about him. He had a son named Robert. That was my father. And I had a son named William. That was your father." William thought grandfather's hand trembled strangely. "Your father was a fine-looking man and a good man," grandfather went on. "I hope you'll grow up to be like him. Well, when your great-great-grandfather Peter died, he left a will. Did I ever tell you what a will is?" William wasn't sure. Anyway, he liked to hear grandfather explain things, so he said, "Tell me again, grandfather." "Before a man gets too old, he writes on a piece of paper all the things he owns. Then he says who is to have those things when he dies. That's what a will is." "I'll let you have my lamb in my will," said William. "Is that all right?" Grandfather's big hand patted his knee. "I'll be leaving you my lambs," he said. "You'll have boys someday to leave yours to, Willie. And that's what I wanted to tell you about your great-great-grandfather Peter. In his will, he gave me and each of my brothers an ewe lamb, just like this ewe lamb of yours. To my son Robert's children, every one of them a ewe lamb. That's what he wrote in his will." Grandfather patted his knee again. "And your lamb's from the same stock. So you see, it isn't just a pet you have now. It's our way of life. Bradfords have been wool raisers as far back as anybody knows, and they've been farmers. You're a yeoman, Willie. I want you to be proud of it." "What's a yeoman, grandfather?" William wanted to know. "A yeoman's a free man. He owns his own land. He works on the land himself. He doesn't expect other men to do the work for him. He knows how to make things grow. He's the backbone of England." William felt the warm pride in his grandfather's voice. It sounded like a wonderful thing to be a yeoman. "Now bring me the book," his grandfather said. "I'll read you a psalm, and then it will be time for bed." The book was the Bible. It was the only book in the house. William had learned to handle the precious book with care. He was proud that grandfather asked him to go to the chest and bring it to the fireside all by himself. "Tonight," grandfather said, "I shall read to you about a shepherd. You're a shepherd yourself now, you know." And he began to read the words William Bradford was to love and remember the rest of his life. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to rest in green pastures, and leadeth me by the still waters. Yea, though I should walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Kindness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall remain a long season in the house of the Lord." William didn't understand all of it, but grandfather explained. "You see, my boy, it's a fine thing to be a shepherd, to be a yeoman. You be good to that lamb, and God will be your shepherd always." William was quiet for a while. Then he said, "I think I'll change my lamb's name. It said in the book, Mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. I guess I'll call her Mercy.